All right, so here we're here for the core best practices for work-based learning. And this is applicable for any of the six sectors. It might look different for the sectors depending on which one you're in. But when we talk about work-based learning, um, it's an important topic. And I just received our internal posting for the realistic survey, and I happened to scan through it a little bit. And when we look at the industry perspective, the number one thing that they said this year was an issue was um, real world experience for the students. And so that really plays into the idea that work-based learning is an important piece of training because it gives them some real world experience in their training while they're still going to school and still learning. So we're going to go through a few of the things that are important for work-based learning today. And one of the key pieces is clear learning objectives. So the work-based learning should be purpose-driven and should define what students should know and be able to do by the end of the experience. It needs to be purposeful. Um, it needs to academically align. So it ties objectives to curriculum standards or post-secondary competencies. For a lot of you, that would mean ASE, AED, could mean the ELDT standards for truck driving. Uh, but it needs to have purpose and be aligned. Uh, it needs to be for career readiness. It should include soft skills, so it shouldn't just be the ASE standards or the outcomes that are there, but it should be soft skills like communication, teamwork, and problem solving. And you should have some sort of documentation. We do actually have some samples of documentation that could be used for the different learning plans. Um, Ideally, it would be individualized, but again, if it's a comprehensive list, students will demonstrate that proficiency and competency at different speeds. So they would go through certain sections faster than others. But that would be documented. Another key aspect of work-based learning is strong partnerships. It really relies heavily on partnerships with your industry and community stakeholders. Um, you need to involve them early in the process. So you don't want to just come in and say, "Hey, we've got this work-based learning apprenticeship model, and here you go." It needs to be coordinated with the employers and with the industry partners because there needs to be a mutual benefit. You need to ensure that the experience adds value for both the student and employers. Um, if it doesn't, it's not going to be a successful program because each entity needs to see value in what they're doing. They need to see how the student needs to see how it fits with the employment, and the employers need to have a chance to interact with the students and build relationships with those students. Um, another example of experience added for the employers would be just the added assistance in the shops. And in order to be sustainable, you need to have long-term relationships. And typically, this is through advisory boards or industry councils, whatever you want to call them. I think most of you have advisory committees, and that's what sustains that is that long-term relationship. Uh, this is something you want to be able to do year in and year out with your industry partners. A key aspect of this is you're really preparing the student. So they need to be ready to succeed in professional environments, and that's why you're exposing them to professional environments and exposing them to that work environment. Um, but part of this is having a pre-work training. So you need to be able to cover workplace etiquette. What's expected? What's what can you expect? Time management, being on time, safety, all of those things are needed to be covered ahead of time. You don't want to just throw them into the work environment without preparation and planning. Um, and career exploration. So, hopefully you maybe partnered with us, and we've gotten some career exploration to get them into the spot where they're interested in automotive, or you've done work with them to get them to that spot. But what about the different careers that they can experience when they're in the work environment? Whether that's a parts manager or service writer, service manager, whatever that may be. Um, even in the business office or sales or something like that, that they might experience and look at as progression uh, once they graduate. And then again, soft skills development, practice communication, conflict resolution, and adaptability. I don't know how many of you were on the webinar that we just had here the other day about AI, but Matt Boudreaux has an AI system in place that will actually help a student process a work order, repair order with customer feedback that can be uh, uh, disappointed or argumentative, and how do you de-escalate that, um, and it allows for back and forth interaction of simulating a customer complaint or customer interaction. So that would be one way of dealing with conflict resolution and being adaptable. You want to have structured experiences. Um, sorry. Um, it should be organized and intentional, not just observational. So types of work-based learning that we'd be talking about here include job shadowing, internships, apprenticeships, and service learning. So the job shadowing is a really good thing for outreach. If you can coordinate that with your industry partners, having a student be able to job shadow ahead of time and see what a day in the life of a technician looks like, or a driver or whatever it may be that you're shadowing. Internships and apprenticeships are probably the most common thing that people think of, and then service learning, working with uh, nonprofit organizations to further the career. Can you please mute your screens, please?
I would say just head up there and see if you can probably hit your screen.
Thank you. Don't forget training agreements. So outline expectations, responsibilities, and learning goals. So kind of think this like well, it's an agreement or kind of a contract of what's expected and what they'll do when they're on the job. Coming in on time, giving a full day's work for their grade in this case, um, or if they're being paid and it's a paid internship or paid apprenticeship, um, giving a full day's work for a full day's pay. And then scheduling, ensure the experience fits. That can be in the academic calendar or student availability. Try and be as flexible as possible in what works for the student and what works for the industry. And then providing ongoing support and supervision. So again, this isn't just give them the apprenticeship and hope they learn type of a situation. They need this guidance. A key piece of this is a mentorship. So in assigning a workplace mentor to provide feedback and support. This is a very important piece of the work-based learning, is to have an on-site mentor that they're working with, um, or a team or whatever, but having some sort of mentorship from people that the person or people that they can go to help guide them along the way. Having check-ins, so scheduling regular meetings between the students, instructors, and employers, making sure what's going on and everything's going well. And then if it's not, having a plan for addressing those issues, having problem resolution that arise during placement. So maybe this is the opportunity for a different mentor. Maybe it's just learning ways to interact and ways to de-escalate situations and using it as a learning tool, but having some plans in place for that. And here's the reflection and assessment. So here's a piece of the piece of the puzzle, I guess, if you want to call it that, that is sometimes overlooked. And that's the reflection piece of this. It can be journals, blogs, discussion groups. I know somebody that just used a simple what was the highlight of your week and what was the biggest challenge of your week, and using that for a weekly check-in to just say what do you remember and what's going on and what have you learned. Having performance reviews, so employer evaluations and self-assessments. How are things going? How do you think things are progressing? And having it be structured. And again, our assessments that we have that are samples do allow for notes and performance review type of options. And then portfolios, having students compile evidence of their learning and accomplishments. And maybe this is as simple as a notebook or folder or whatever that has their repair orders. And maybe the customer information is removed or redacted or whatever, but having something that documents the learning that they've done and the experiences that they've had. Gives a sense of ownership as well to the student. And you can't forget equity and access. So it's ensuring that all students can participate in work-based learning regardless of background. Transportation and stipends. If this is an unpaid internship or apprenticeship, that can definitely pose challenges for a lot of people to be able to get to the workforce and the work site. And so are there ways to address barriers like travel or unpaid work? What resources are available at the school or available through community support? There are definitely entities that can help with that, but you have to know your local area and who's there and who can help with those types of things. Ideally, it's a paid internship or a paid apprenticeship, but that's not always the case. So you may have barriers to that. Adapting experiences for students with disabilities or language needs. Maybe that's a bilingual mentor or a bilingual shop or something like that that can meet the need of students with a language need. And then the various I'm drawing a blank. Various things that can help with persons with disabilities, accommodations. That's what I was looking for. And then outreach, actively recruiting underrepresented students into work-based learning programs. And, by far in the majority of our programs, the 6 sectors that we deal with, female participants is probably the biggest underrepresented student that we have. Definitely others, but the numbers are pretty significant when we start talking female applicants. So trying to actively recruit for that and actively have outreach for those people would be great. And don't forget the legal and safety compliance. So you want to make sure that you protect the students and employers by following all applicable laws and policies. Understand youth employment regulations and labor laws. And I will say that some don't know this, but the majority of technician jobs, you have to be 18 in order to really do much of anything in the field. However, if the industry is part of a registered apprenticeship, there is an opportunity for students that are 16 to 18 to be able to do those activities.
You
And
don't have
so,
to. It's a transportation.
hey, John, can you mute your screen, please?
Yeah, you got it, kids.
All right. Insurance, ensuring liability and worker compensation coverage. Again, if they're employed, that's covered through workman's comp. And then liability as far as being a student, ensuring that that's adequate as well. And then for anybody that's from the high school side of things, there's the parental consent issues that you may have to have for necessary permissions and emergency contacts and things like that. And you want to make sure that it integrates with your curriculum. So it should reinforce and extend the classroom learning. It should be project based. So if you can ideally, talk through and work through some of the key points, whether it's breaks or suspension or whatever it may be, and then they go to their apprenticeship and they're able to practice and do that in the work environment as well. um, and have it progress through the school year. Uh, that's a key piece of some of the success, so that it's they're not going into the work environment and trying to do suspension if they haven't learned suspension. Have it be learned in the classroom and in the lab settings, and then reinforced in the work-based learning side of things. Have cross-disciplinary links. So you want to tie the experiences to multiple subject areas, whether that's math or science. Um, make sure that you're tying that in, and some of it's automatic because the uh, Ohm's law or whatever it may be. That's physics. So um, maybe they don't realize that they're learning they're learning science, but they definitely are. Um, but having that cross-disciplinary activity, which is already happening in most cases, but and then giving credit or recognition, so offering academic credit or certifications where appropriate. Um, if you're doing an internship, you can offer credit for that internship, um, and should be doing something like that, or a certificate of some sort for that training. And then continuous improvement. Anything we do, we should be looking at and improving, making it better each time we do it, each time we review it. So having surveys and interviews, gathering input from students, employers, and educators. How's it going? What could be done better? What went well? Getting that type of feedback from the students, from the employers, from the educators. Uh, data tracking, monitoring the participation, the outcomes, and equity metrics. So gather the data, try to be as detailed as possible with it, and then a program review. Regularly evaluate and update policies and practices. So don't just take the surveys, but do something with them. Make sure that you're improving and acting on the things that pop up as needing to improve. And each year you do it, or each semester that you do it, it's an opportunity to improve. So that's the core essence of work-based learning and the key components that are needed for a good work-based learning program. I'm going to open it up for questions, so feel free to unmute or post something in the chat